when we're looking at this bell work, I hope everyone is at least aware of how to get started, because it's essentially just a straightforward solve for x. Here's your equation. So it's just an algebra equation. There are two ways we could solve this. One of them will be slightly more challenging than the other, but let's go ahead and see what's going on. We've got 9 times x minus 9 equals negative 11. And what we could do this one of two ways. I could just take this entire equation on the left and divide by 9. And that cancels this out, so I don't have to do the distributive property. If you did it this way in your head, you might realize you're going to be dealing with fractions at that point. And, you can do it, but you have to deal with fractions at that point. You might find it less simple that way, if that's the right way of saying it. Another thing we could do is we could just go ahead and do the distributive property. So I'm going to go ahead and do it that way. So 9x minus 81, when I multiply the 9, gives me negative 11. Now I want to add 81 to both sides. Okay, so that cancels out. So 9x on the left is going to equal, that's essentially 81 minus 11, which is 70. So now I can just take both sides, divide by, not 9, or 7, whatever. Divide by 9, that's what I was trying to say. X equals 70 over 9. We don't want to put that into a decimal because that's not our answer form. The answer is E. You can try and figure out where you made your mistake if you made the mistake. I will show you real quick. If we had done dividing by 9 at the beginning, we'd get the same answer, but it gets a little more challenging because if I divide by 9, I get x minus 9 equals negative 11 over 9. And now whenever I add 9 to both sides, I have to convert that into a fraction. So it'd be negative 11 over 9, plus I have to figure out what 9 is as a fraction over 9. It would be 81 over 9. So, we go from there, we get the same answer. So I guess I did do the whole thing, but, you can see one way might look more simple to you than the other. All right. Just one second, if I can figure out what I'm doing. So what we're looking at with this activity is, and you're not doing this worksheet, let me tell you, this is not your homework, but this is a mix of all special right triangles, all meaning 45, 41, 90, and 30, 60, 90. So the question we've kind of been skipping is the very first thing you need to find out and decide is what kind of special right triangle are we looking at? And before that hasn't mattered because it's been all of one type or all of the other. But now we're going to get a mix and you're going to need to figure that out. So we're going to look at just two problems today. We'll go through both of them. And then I'm going to show you what your specific activity is going to be. So we're going to look at problem number 5 and number 7. So when we look at number 5, what type of special right triangle are we looking at? That is a 45, 45, 90. There's not going to be any kind of trickery going on when you look at this. I mean, it's going to frequently just give you the angle 45, 45, 90. Or, when you look at it, you're going to see this is an isosceles triangle, two sides of the same length. This one is not. So it's not a trick question type of thing going on. So let's go ahead and solve this. And I'm just going to run through the actual solving pretty quickly. So now that we've decided that it's a 45, 45, 90, now I'm on the camera showing this, I'm going to ignore all of this stuff on the left side of the page on this reference. And I don't care about the 30, 60, 90 for this particular problem. I only care about these rules and these relationships over here. So I'm going to use these equations. All right. So I know the hypotenuse here. I am solving for the side length. There's the hypotenuse. So at this point, my rule says that the leg equals the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. I'm either multiplying by the square root of 2 or dividing. That's the only thing that I do with 45, 45, 90 triangles. And so the leg is unknown. I'm just going to call it x. I'm going to solve for x first. The hypotenuse is 6 divided by the square root of 2. Now, as you are aware of by now, we cannot leave our answer in this form. What do we need to do? Make the denominator not a radical. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And what is the specific way we make the denominator not a radical anymore? There you go. So we're going to multiply this by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. We're rationalizing the denominator. You don't need to remember that phrase, but you do need to remember the idea. And the reason we're multiplying by this is really just so we can multiply these two numbers together. We want to multiply the denominator by itself. And in order to do that, we have to put the radical over itself. You're following along with my logic there. So I get 6 times the square root of 2 for the numerator. Square root of 2 times square root of 2. Here's where I'm going to skip a step. That's going to give me square root of 4, which becomes 2. Yeah. So whenever you have square root of something times square root of the same thing, it's whatever's under the radical is what you get as a whole number. So square root of 2 times square root of 2 gives me whole number 2. And now, can we simplify this any further? All right, what can we do? Divide that 6 by 2, and we should get 3 square root of 2. All right. So there are ways that this could be partially done, and we want to find the final simplest answer, and that's where we've got it. So x equals 3 square root of 2. What is y going to be? The same thing, 3 square root of 2. All right, and here's where I want to point out something that you need to know for the test. If you are taking the test and you have a problem like this, where you're given the hypotenuse and you need to solve for both legs of a 45, 45, 90, the thing that we know is that both of the legs are going to be the same length. So that means you're probably only going to solve for it one time. And let's say you mess up and you get the wrong answer for x, but you put that same wrong answer for y. You're not going to be counted wrong twice. I just want to make sure you know that. If you get the wrong answer for x, but then you copy it over for y because you know you don't need to solve it twice, well, then I'm going to give you credit for getting y correct, even though you copied the wrong answer. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm trying to show you that there are ways that if you understand certain rules about the special right triangle, you might miss a problem here. But if you know most of what there is to know about special right triangles, you can get a lot of points on this test. Okay, so there's your 45, 45, 90. Looking at number 7, what kind of triangle is that? It's a 30, 60, 90. So now, looking at my reference sheet, whether you have a physical copy or a digital copy or your own notes, I want to ignore everything about the 45, 45, 90 on the right side of the page and focus on these on the left. So that first question that you ask yourself is going to narrow it down to which equations you're using. And now you can use these prompts right here if you're using my reference, but you can come up with your own way of going through this. So now we know the hypotenuse. So down here at the bottom it says, if you know the hypotenuse or want to solve for the hypotenuse, use these. So I know the hypotenuse, I'm going to use one of these two equations. It doesn't honestly matter which one you pick, but since I'm solving for the short leg, I'm going to put the short leg equals the hypotenuse divided by 2. The short leg is y. The hypotenuse is 16 divided by 2 is 8. I'm not spending long on these problems. You'll get plenty of practice with this. So there we go. This is 8. And now I need to solve for the short leg first. That's the key. That's what I've been trying to reinforce these last few days. So once I know the short leg, I can solve for any of the other two sides. I already know the hypotenuse, so let's solve for the long leg. So I guess if we go back to this, on the reference sheet, it says, if you know the long leg or want to solve for the long leg, use these. So again, it doesn't matter which one of those you use, but I like to put the thing I'm solving for by itself. So the long leg equals the short leg times the square root of 3. The long leg is x from the diagram. 8 is the short leg times the square root of 3 just gives me 8 square root of 3. Nothing more I can do. So there it is, 8 square root of 3. So today isn't a day necessarily for me to go through all the different, like a bunch of examples. I've spent many days doing that. You can find the videos of it through Canvas if you need them. All right. So instead, I'm going to show you what your activity is going to look like, and I'm going to pause the video and pause sharing real quick. So your activity today is, it's an escape room, and it's all about special right triangles. And as you're looking through, you can read through this. You're basically going to go through different levels of this escape room. And sure, essentially, you're just doing a bunch of special right triangle problems, but there's going to be a specific order to it. So level 1 is very straightforward. It just gives you 4 problems, solve the 4, and come up with an answer. So in this particular one, if A equals 5, so you need to, maybe you want to draw a diagram of this and put in the value. If A equals 5, what's the value of B? Maybe you can answer that in your head right now. And I hope some of you can, maybe a lot of you can. So you can figure out which one of these is going to be the correct answer. And then you've got those choices to follow. And you can just record which answer goes to which. So this is question number 1. Is it A, B, C, or D? All right, pretty straightforward. When you get down, well, actually, I wanted to show you this question. It asks you to find the value of this one to the nearest 10th. This is the only problem that asks you to do that. And I've never asked you to do that before. So this is the only one I'm a little bit like, it's not ideal. But you can do this one. And when you solve it, you'll find it's really not so bad. All right. Again, just pretty straightforward asking questions. Here's where you can connect all your different answers together and so on. Now, this part, you can see the instructions in the top right. There are 10 special right triangles, a mix of 45, 45, 90, and 30, 60, 90 triangles. You're going to solve for X and Y for each problem, and then write the matching letter on the blank above the answer. So, of course, right here, this letter will need to be the triangle that has the answers 3 square root of 2 and 3 square root of 2. And you can find out which one that's going to be when you go through and do that. Sorry. Let me see. Level 3 is just kind of a maze. You start here on the left. Based on your answer for X, you're only solving for one side. Based on your answer for X, you're going to go 1 of 3 directions, and you'll just keep following your way through the maze until you work your way over to the end. So here's what you actually need to turn in, because this is a lot of worksheet right here. And what I want you to do is this last page has your level 1, 2, and 3 answers. And you can just write those in. That's all I really need to see, but I also want to see your work because you're probably going to be doing this on a sheet of paper. So just to show you what it looks like for today, when you start the assignment, this is not a text box. Instead, it's a file upload. I want you to take a picture of your answer. You can do a screenshot for the, if you're doing this on your iPad, you can take a screenshot of this if you can annotate. Otherwise, you can kind of show your answers some way or another. Anyway, so if you can annotate, that's good. And I also want you to upload pictures of your work that you've done on paper. So here's where you can add another file. So if this is your answer sheet, this can be a picture of your work. Maybe it takes you 2 pages. So upload another picture. Okay. And that's pretty much what we're doing today. If you finish with this, just remember an encouragement to work on a previous Delta Math assignment so you can get caught up with that. Highly encourage you to work on that over the weekend as well, those of you who are still not caught up. So with that, I think I've explained everything that you need to know. If you have questions, you want to run through some stuff, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, you can get to your practice. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I will see you on Monday when you have your practice test.